Okay, Friday, Friday afternoon here on the East Coast. Beautiful day. I hope it is where you are, and let's get down to it. Thank you for coming. Um, I want to hit a variety of topics today. I did something similar to this just the other day on a variety of topics, and I'm being careful not to hit the same, what we call gems. These are different ones because there have been a whole lot of them that have come out of this downtime. I hate this epidemic, and I, like all of you, can't wait for it to go away and let's get back to trying cases. But if we're going to make the most out of it, the silver lining has been it's given me a great opportunity to talk with our lawyers individually on the phone, learn a lot of things from them about what they perceived as problems in cases, and help strategies to deal with those things. And then it's given me a chance to do these webinars and where I can pass some of that, what otherwise would oftentimes be internal information shared. It gives me a chance to get it out to all of our brothers and sisters that do the same kind of good work we do, which is fighting for the sake of justice for our injured clients. So let me get down to some of these. One of them is this. This is a really significant big picture item that has come to me through all of this. And it is, I'm always dealing with issues in cases and trying to frame our way in a way to where things that the defense would try to hurt our case with are ineffective. Or sometimes we can actually turn it back against them. And I've got a new perspective of doing that framing, and it's this. Our starting point is always our client's right. Now, look, we've all had cases where somewhere along the line turned out our client wouldn't tell us the truth, or they didn't have a righteous claim, or, it's sad, but it very rarely happens, but it does. But that doesn't mean we start out suspicious of them. The defense does. We don't. They've hired us to represent them. We have a fiduciary duty to them, and that includes simply believing them. So if we start out saying, I believe my client, until really proven, and if it's just the first time something comes along, makes me question, we don't jump ship and go, all right, nah, I don't believe it. We go, all right, I understand that may look bad. Let's really give the client the benefit of the doubt, and let's look at the circumstances. Let's talk about it. And so many times we will end back on going, boy, I'm glad I didn't bail out on them because they are right. And shame on me for thinking otherwise. But it's our job to be careful and a watchful eye of things. Because look, a jury may run with it and think you aren't being straight. So we have to deal with it, but we ought to always deal with it from the perspective of client's right, period. It's kind of like customer's always right, client's always right, until really, really, really proven otherwise. And so with that starting point, one of the things we see a lot of is them trying to blame our client, either for all of it or for part of it. And I've been dealing with a lot of that in these phone calls with our lawyers. And I realized in over and over and over saying, here's why that's not a problem for us. Here's why we're still right, even though they're making a pretty good case to make it look like we're wrong, or we're at least partially at fault. That to get to the revelation where you go, aha, here's how we're going to deal with that, and it's going to work because it's righteous. Here's how we get from there. I realized we start with the belief my client's right. Now I've been handed this potential problem. I've been handed this thing that could make it look like our client's wrong, or at least partially at fault. And my driving force needs to be my client's right, they are wrong. Now, how am I going to take this piece of information and not flip the script, not end up we're wrong, they're right? How do I keep those anchor points in place? We are right and they are wrong. And right in the middle of it is this fact that's come to me. I need to keep my anchors in. How do I keep that position? I start by saying, okay, my client is right. Why is this information not changing? We don't come to it unbiased. We don't come to it and say, okay, that sounds bad. Sounds starting to sound like my client's wrong. We come to it as, no way, my client is right still. let me figure out why. It is a very biased approach, but we're so advocates. We are paid and obligated to be biased for our client, not blind. That's crazy to go blind, but advocates for, meaning I believe in them. I am biased for them. And every piece of information comes to me that may make their case worse, I am duty bound to prove it wrong until you just can't. And there are times you can't. We don't need to be fools about it. But by God, 95% of these things, at the end, we can prove that wrong and still say, my client's right, not because we're kidding ourselves, because they are. And one of those big things is when they try to have affirmative defenses or other ways to blame our client. And I want to run through some of those. And one of the things that I realized in doing this is, in working these problems over and over, and I started seeing this pattern, and then it starts, if any of you that ever read my book or heard me talk know, I believe in systems rather than just one-off knockoffs. I like things to fit so they can be reproduced over and over and over. And I started seeing, and I like to look for a framework from which to teach this strategy. And the framework is anchor points. I'm not going to flip them. They're going to stay where they are. How do I get there? And this came to me just with glaring recognition from doing it so many phone calls with our lawyers over almost 2 months. Circumstances matter. Circumstances. When we approach this with that driving force to say we are still right, my client isn't to blame, even a little, we have to look at what are the circumstances. And so many of the things they're trying to put blame on our client only work if you take them out of context. They only work as a generality. They do not work when you look at the true circumstances. Classic example. Now, this isn't brand new, and if you've been listening to me on any of these webinars, you probably heard me say this. Bear with it. I'm not rehashing it. I'm making an example out of it. But the example is, I'm going to give you a couple that I've talked about. Then we're going to go to some fresh ones. Trip and fall, open and obvious, sidewalk case, sidewalk sticking up, 4 or 5 inches, broad daylight. If you look, you see it, period. So what is the natural reaction? You look at the picture and you go, uh-oh, open and obvious, big problem. I don't know if I can even win this case. And if I do, I'm going to get heavy comparative because it's just so obvious if you were to look at it. And damn. Then we say, no, I am not going to be stuck in that framework. That is the negative framework. That's not our job. So we go back to the framework and we say, all right, my client is right, they're wrong, my client doesn't bear any of the fault. How do I get there? And you're bias driven. I'm trying to get to the result I want, which is she's still got no fault. But I got this sidewalk sticking up and you can see it. And then you start thinking, but why would it not be her fault? And then add in the circumstance. Just every time you work one of these problems, say to yourself, what are the circumstances in play? That, and not just to throw circumstances in willy-nilly, for the designed purpose, is there something in these circumstances which will prove it is not my client's fault? Forget knee-jerk reactions. It isn't after I stare at the circumstances. That's where you will find, aha, it really isn't my client's fault. I'm not making it up. It's not. And once you get there, then you can show it to the jury and they'll get there too. Hell, you probably can't show it to the defense, but you may show them enough of it to spook them into saying, I don't feel nearly as confident in my defense. And the less confident they are, the more money they pay, or the more confidence they are, the less they pay. So your chances of having a fair settlement without going to trial go up if you can rattle their confidence. So let's use that rise and let's run through it. We got the open and obvious sidewalk. What is it about those circumstances that get me back to my client and it all at fault? Where are you walking? The premise of blaming your client is if you can see it, you ought to see it. The basic wording is you ought to be looking where you're going. You got to look where you're walking, for God's sake. That's why it's a scary premise to start with. But when we go to the reality, the real world, under a tight, focused assessment using the circumstances, you reach a totally different conclusion. Yes, you ought to be looking where you're going. Yes, you could see it. No, in these circumstances, that make it her fault. Why? Because there are circumstances where it would absolutely be her fault if she was not looking at every step. And then there's circumstances where nobody in their right mind watches every step, unless, they've got a physical problem. When's the last time you walked to lunch on a sidewalk in your city with a friend, talking, watching your feet every step? I'm just watching my feet. I mean, hell, you're going to bump into people. Of course you don't. So the question isn't, can you see it? Of course you can. The question is, did you do something wrong by not looking at that moment down? And there are circumstances where there has to be yes. You walking through a junkyard with broken glass and all kinds of stuff. Yes, look down. On a sidewalk, it's called a sidewalk for a reason. You walk on it. You see, we went from open and obvious to bring it on. And I mean, that's a real case. We got a $4 million verdict on it. I'm sorry, we did not. I'm mixing up cases. We got a $1.35 million verdict on that. Not more than that. Zero comparative fault. And their offers were so bad before trial because they were counting on it, because they didn't do what we did. They just said, woo, and I would say, yeah. So that's an example. And let me give you the next piece of that. I'll use the same example, and then I'm going to go to some other things I haven't talked about. On a comparative fault claim, don't ever forget that's their burden of proof. They have to prove that your client did what? Here's the key. Let's start with what doesn't get it for them. It's not enough for them to prove, remember, it's their burden of proof. It's not enough for them to prove your client could have seen it. It's not enough to prove someone else would have seen it. They have to prove your client did something wrong, that your client did something unreasonable. She acted unreasonable. She did something wrong. And wrong is a good word for this situation, because wrong equals bad. Did your client do something bad if she was walking down a sidewalk, talking to someone, or watching a motorcycle go by, or a pretty bird, or a bush, and not staring on her feet on a sidewalk, which is meant come walk here, it's safe? Is that wrong not to be staring down? Of course it's not. So when you tell the jury, we got to look at the circumstances. You explain there are circumstances where you were. This isn't one where you'd be staring in every step. In fact, that'd be dangerous. And look, someone else may have been able to see it. Someone else, my client could have seen it. She looked down. They got a burden of proof. They got to prove not that those things, they got to prove my client did something wrong. She acted unreasonable. Please bring back a verdict that says my client didn't do anything wrong. You feel the total shift from something when if I first said, let me show you this. If I'd have done, I wish I'd had the damn picture. I'd have made the point much more powerfully. I'd have shown this and said, how many of you think that's an unwinnable case or big time comparative? Everyone has said it. Hell, it's what I reacted when I saw it. No more. Another one that I've done example just to drive the point home before I give some other new ones is the gap in treatment argument. Oh yeah, I'm into the doctor. Okay, get them into the doctor. But why do you do that? Because we've been trained to do that. Why, if we look at the circumstances, does that not fit? The circumstances are our client was told, our client went to the doctor and went to the doctor because she was looking for a cure. And it took a huge chunk of time. It's a half a day to go to the doctor, sit, wait, sign in, see the doctor, and drive back across town. Why would you do that over and over and over? Hope for a cure. What happened? She heard there's no cure. You're going to have it forever. It's permanent. You reach maximum medical improvement. What'd she do? She got on with the business of life. You can't camp out at the doctor's office when there's no cure, just because it might make you feel a little better. Now, that doesn't mean it wouldn't be better for your case if they kept going. It's better, I mean, and better for them health-wise, because you keep the pain managed. That's what we call it, pain management. Don't let it get out of control. Give yourself that gift. Go to the doctor. But if they don't, it's not doing something wrong. It's not unreasonable, and it damn sure doesn't prove they're not hurt. Why? Circumstances. It's very reasonable to get on with life. Why go back? You go back because it's taken a toll or it's gotten worse. You go back before trial because we're bringing the surgeon in here to testify. We got an obligation to the jury, and we tell them that they have current information. So of course he needed to have a new, fresh exam and ask questions and run the MRI fresh. Of course, we're not going to bring you stale information. We're going to bring you the best evidence. Then when you look at it like that, you're going, my client didn't do anything wrong. It damn sure doesn't prove. Not going to the doctor does not equal no pain. No doctor, no pain. That is a broken formula. People don't go to the doctor all the time sitting around in chronic pain. So circumstances matter. So now let's talk about some that, one more I had done. You're in a grocery store. You go to the grocery store, you slip and fall, you go, I'm going to probably get some comparative because everybody thinks you ought to be looking where you're walking. Well, wait a minute, I'm in a grocery store. Every product's up. There's nothing for sale on the floor. But even more than that, you're pushing a cart because they gave you a cart. They have more carts than they have people because they want to make sure you can purchase lots of stuff so they can make lots of money. And how are they going to make lots of money? If you fill the cart. So they don't give you, they give you a little cart, but they hope you use the big cart. But whichever cart you go, you got the cart for a reason. Taking it off the shelf, looking up off the shelf in the cart. If you wanted to look, let's say you said, you know, I'm tired of looking for what I'm here to buy and get out of here. I want to walk around and watch the floor in the grocery store. So I'm going to do a couple laps and watch the ground. I mean, see how silly that is? You couldn't if you wanted to. Why? You got a cart with all the stuff in it. So all of a sudden you go from, it is a slip and fall, or so we're going to have to reduce our value at settlement because you know there's a high probability the jury's going to at least blame us for some of it. No, don't discount it a cent, because you've now said, why is it really not my client's fault? Why is it theirs? And how can I make that the reality now that I have this concern about it is a slip and fall? Circumstances. And again, you're not walking through a field with cactus and things. It's not a minefield. It's not a place where you would look under these circumstances, and you couldn't if you wanted. So forget worrying about comparing. You may have other things to worry about, like notice and how long something was on the floor and opportunity to correct and all that, but you don't need to worry about. You should have been looking where you're going. So now let's talk. Here's another one. I don't know if I've covered this before or not, but let me throw it out there. Priors. You know how many people, when I called on the phone, said, you know, I want to talk to you about this case. And one of the problems is my client had 2 prior, incidents. One, she went to the doctor with back pain from, being she lifted something. And the other is she was in another car crash. And, that's okay. Why is that? Why is my client still right? She was injured in this crash and injured in a way she ought to get full value, not discount value, not throwing the discount bin because she had some priors. That's where I want to go. I want to say I want to hold out for full value on this case. I don't want to discount it. Now, she has these prior back problems. Now they've gone away, but they're in her history, and it's going to cause the insurance company to keep the money down, and probably the jury. So wait, no more. Anchor point. We're right, full value. They're wrong. How can I get there? Stay there. Circumstances. Client's 50 years old. Who the hell's 50 years old and hadn't had some problem in their back or neck? Think about it. It's your back and neck. Every damn thing you do puts it at risk. Most people by the time they're 50 have been in a crash or two. I don't know how many I've been in. How about most people who slept wrong got a crick in their back or neck? If it didn't go away, they may have gone to the chiropractor. How many people haven't lifted something awkward and went, oh, God damn it. Why would we discount the case? Because your client did what damn near everybody else did in their life, but they got better from it. If they had no history of any problem with their back, I'd be suspicious. So now you see when you go into the circumstances. It's the same thing with not a lot of visible property damage. That is the most pronounced, repeated question I get from our own lawyers. And I'm not going to do it now. If you haven't heard it, seen it, please get my book. There is a wonderful way to show how not a lot of visible property damage. They parade those pictures around and it's just a scratch or a little dent, just killing it. There's an analogy and a little story, and you will put it to bed. Kill it in every case. And there's a ton of stuff like that in my book. If you don't have my book, please get it. Don't eat the bruises. Go to Trial Guides, don't go to Amazon because they mark it up. Go to Trial Guides and put in this discount code, Mitnik Morgan 5. Mitnik Morgan 5. And there's no C, it's not N-I-C-K, it's K-M-I-T-N-I-K 5. And there's a discount. Please consider getting it. It is A to Z, everything about trial. And there's so much more in there I could possibly cover today. Or if I did this for a month, I couldn't cover it. And it's all laid out there. And there is a section in there that will show you how to put an end to those damn pictures. But having said that, let's go back to this exercise. I have people bring it up all the time. Yeah, but you know, here's the problem. There really is very little property damage, a little scratch. And then I've heard lawyers saying, "It's God, I've got that, and I've only got a few of them where there's a lot of property damage or moderate. Almost all my herniated disc cases are like that." Well, it's a problem. It's not a problem. If the car was totaled, if it was the car you drive by on the side of the road and go, oh no, someone's dead. Someone would probably be dead. The nature of a herniated disc case is you almost always don't have a lot of property damage. It doesn't mean they're not hurt. It doesn't mean they're all phonies. Why? Circumstances. Because it is about the unexpected jarring in an awkward position that causes the injury, not the crush to the metal. If there was a crush to the metal, the injury would probably be death or somebody's, in a coma. So circumstances. Here's another one. Your client didn't go to the doctor right away. They were 2 weeks. Okay, sounds like you're not hurt. Bad defense is going to make a big deal out of this one. So I probably should discount. No. Why? Because we're going to work the problem. My client is right. My client is hurt. And I'm not going to move it down to maybe not discount it. That's what I want. How can I get there? Using that biased hard fight to get there. This is what I owe to my client. It's my job to do that. I'm going to look at the circumstances. What are the circumstances? The defense is always sprain strain. Guess what? That's what they thought your client thought it was. Your client didn't go, oh, damn it, I got a herniated disc. I better get it a neurosurgeon. Oh my God, I know that feeling. It's a herniated disc. It's a disc. They don't. They go, oh, I'm sore. Ooh, I'm stiff. Ooh, I got a headache. God, I don't feel great. I got to get to the office. I got to pick the kids up. I got stuff to do. I got groceries in the back of my car, and some of it's ice cream. I got to get home. And they're figuring it's going to go away. And they get up the next morning and go, ooh, it's worse than I thought. Gonna go away. Finally, about 3 days in, someone's spouse says, honey, you maybe ought to go to the doctor. I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm just sore. Now you're about 8 days out. So, maybe I better go get an appointment anyhow, and I'll cancel it if it gets better. Well, the appointment, they're not saying, stop it, get them in now. Bring them in an ambulance, emergency, come in today. And you say, okay, we got an appointment the following Monday. Well, you're another week waiting to go to the doctor. What the hell about those circumstances leads to a conclusion your client's not hurt? Nothing. Would you rather them gone to the emergency room? Yeah. A lot of people, because of the nature of it's rattling, and they go, I better go get checked out. Please come. Maybe you better get checked out. So you go to the emergency room. Being cautious. But what do they tell you? Sprain, go home. Plain film x-ray. You don't get around to the MRI, which is the only way you're going to find the herniated disc, until it doesn't go away. Finally, the chiropractor says, look, this may not just be a sprain strain. So circumstances are so important in looking at these things. Let me see. I wrote a couple of these other problems. Here's one. Someone is not getting surgery. It's been recommended. How am I going to put up numbers on the board for surgery when my client didn't get it? And how am I going to convince the jury she's really that hurt when the doctor said you need surgery and doesn't get it? That sounds like maybe you're not really hurt, or certainly not bad. And you certainly shouldn't be getting money for it if you didn't get it. Let's look at the circumstances. Where am I at? Client hurt bad enough to need surgery, and I don't want to take that expensive surgery off there. How can I get there? Well, let's look at the circumstances, see if I can get there. Back surgery is a big deal. Back surgery has no guarantee it's going to work. Doctors always tell you that. Anyone that is a grown-up has heard people have back surgery, didn't do a damn thing, or they're worse off. You're talking about a fusion, that's a big-ass surgery. So what is wrong under the circumstances with someone saying, I am not having them operate on my back near my spinal cord with no guarantee it's even going to work for now? No, I can tolerate this now. I'm getting by this way in pain, but I'm not taking those risks when the odds aren't that great it's going to work until I absolutely need it. It's so bad I can't function. And right now, I can still get on about my business. I've got this pain, and it's a big damn deal, but I can deal with it. Why does that mean they're not hurt? Or not hurt much? And why would you take it off the board? This is a verdict for all time. And if we don't put it up, the jury can't consider it. And I tell them that. Folks, she hadn't had it. But you've heard, the doctor says she needs it. You heard from her, she ain't going to do it unless she really has to. And right now, she doesn't really have to. But when you take that damaged link in the spine that is always under use and stress, it's only going to get worse with time. When arthritis lays on top of in a normal aging process, lays on top of that damaged link. So we are putting it on for your consideration, because if we don't, you can't even consider it. That's the law. So you're dang right we put it on there, because in all likelihood, she's going to need it. That's up to you. But we put it on there. Now, when you hear it like that, you go, why would I suddenly discount this case? Why would I take off that necessary future thing that is very likely to happen? You wouldn't. And it's all from stopping the knee-jerk reaction to what the defense wants you to have and saying, I've got an obligation to keep that anchor. And I want to look at the circumstances to see if I validly can. And so many times you validly can. Here's another one. This one's a little bit of a problem, but not nearly what people make it to be because of circumstances. My client started out and complained of the back. Here's the real one. Someone called me about it. I'm concerned about it because my client's ended up having shoulder surgery and got a problem with the shoulder. But initially, the talk was the neck, and there was some radiating into the arm, but not the shoulder. Well, let's go back to the circumstance. And you're, by the way, the neck healed, shoulder is the problem. Let's look at the circumstances. The neck was hurting like hell. The shoulder was stiff and bothering. The person went in and complained about the primary problem. Everyone's thinking it's radiating down through the shoulder. It may just very well have been the shoulder itself hurting. It's natural to think you got a neck something, it can radiate down your shoulder. So the client's not focused on it. The client's focused on the main problem, and then they're whining about every bump and bruise. You know, she also probably stubbed her toe. She didn't talk about that. And then as this resolved and this didn't, you're going, hey, I didn't think this was a big deal, but I'm having trouble. Maybe I ought to get a check. MRI, boom. You've got a traumatically torn rotator cuff. And you can tell it's fresh because of the swelling and the increased signal. It was a crash. So would I rather have been complaining it? Sure, it's one less thing to deal with. But when you look at the circumstances, is it really a problem? One that you ought to start discounting or being afraid to take it to trial because it's a compromised case? No, take it to trial. So, and here are a couple other little examples on that circumstances. Pit bull. Lawyer called me, wasn't in our firm, but someone else called me that's a friend, said, I got a problem in a case. The insurance is on the homeowners, who's the mother of the dog owner. And the dog owner doesn't have any insurance or anything. And it was this mean pit bull, and she would leave it at her mother's house. And it would get in the backyard and would just go nuts because the neighbor had some sweet little dog, and there was a fence. And it had been there, 5-6 times. Well, finally on this last time, the damn pit bull ate his way through the fence, wooden fence, literally. And the neighbor's little dog ran over there, dumb dog, but some dogs are dumb, to see what the hell's going on. And the damn pit bull got his snoot and it's ripping his face off. So the owner comes out screaming to save his dog, and he ends up getting the living hell eaten out of his hand. I mean, bad. He's a laborer. He can't do what he did anymore. His hand torn up. So the concern is, yeah, but I'm suing the homeowner. It's not her dog. And so this one came to me quick, but if I had needed to work the problem, I would have said, all right, let's look at the circumstances. And we want the responsibility to be squarely on the homeowner, not the owner of the dog, her daughter. What about the circumstances would get me to that desired result? Well, everybody knows what a jury's going to think about a bad neighbor. Bad neighbors are nightmares. This lady doesn't have to bring that dog in. This lady won't let the mean son of a bitch stay in her house. She puts him in the backyard. And what does he do back there? Terrorizes his neighbor all the time. What an asshole neighbor. You volunteer to take this mean dog you won't leave in the house so he can torture your neighbor until he finally gets hold of his poor dog and he ends up damn near losing his hand. Am I going to blame the owner who lives out in the country somewhere and ain't bothering their neighbors? And she knows the mean dog, but you know what? She fell in love with the dog. It's like having a son who's out of control. You still love him. You don't want to take him to the pound and put him down. So she got a mean dog, but she lives out in the country. It's not hurting anybody. But mom's got a choice. Mom just said, bring it on. I don't care. I'm going to be a bad neighbor and terrorize my neighbor until he gets hurt. You damn right the homeowner is responsible. Just by looking at the circumstances. I had another one come to me. I'm really concerned because my client worked on the roofs all the time. His job was involved in being on the roof all the time. And he hit an open vent. And the vent is supposed to have been marked. But he hit the vent and it's like, God, he ought to know better. Let's look at the circumstances. We want them to be at fault, not him. What are the circumstances will get me to that end result that I'm fighting hard to do because it's my job to do it? Because I believe in my client and I believe in the cause of the case. How do I get there? Circumstances. Okay. If I get on, I got to fear heights, and a lot of people do. I get on a roof, I'm like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rockers. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm looking at every damn step. I could be 10 feet from the edge, and I'm like, because I'm afraid I'm going to trip and roll off the damn house. You think someone who professionally works on roofs thinks that way? They're like, and people work on windows on high rise. I'm like, ah. People that work on a roof aren't tiptoeing around watching every step. They walk on a roof like you and I walk on a sidewalk. But you know what he does have? Special knowledge that they are required by code to mark vents. And in fact, it shouldn't have passed inspection being unmarked. So now we got an unmarked vent. So he's not nervous Nelly up there. He's comfortable, but he knows what he's looking for. You got to be careful for them damn vents, but that's okay. They're easy to spot because they're marked. Someone without special knowledge isn't going to be looking. They're going to have a vent is going to be, oh, there's something I can trip on. He ain't looking because he knows they're marked. So I'd say, look, you're worrying that he's a professional. I think that makes your case better under the circumstances if you really think about it. But you got to allow yourself to try to get to that point. And I can do that. I got a list here of people called in and with dozens of these things. I could do this until the end of the show, but I want to cover some other things. So let's leave that topic for now. Let me just hit some other things. Someone asked me, what do you do when I've got a really slick witness? I took their depo. They are handsome, very articulate, likable as hell, smart as hell, big resume of experience and training, and they won't answer a damn question. I've never seen anyone so evasive, but they're so good at it. It doesn't even come off like they're being evasive. And how am I going to cross-examine them, Mitnik? Because I'm just telling you, you can't cross this guy. And it's not going to, he's so good, he's not even going to come off like he's being slippery. He's one of the best I've ever seen. Well, here's the answer. Call him out in opening statement, point it out. Opening statement. This isn't an argument. This is an opening statement. Here's what I expect the evidence to show. We have taken his sworn statement. It's called a deposition. Court reporters there, they're under oath. We question and we set it up at the time in advance. And we ask questions and their lawyers there with them, just like in court. It gives us an opportunity to find out what they're going to say so we don't get ambushed. And they do it to our witnesses too. So everyone takes these depositions of each other's witnesses. And then if they change their testimony, we got in a booklet form and we can show, you changed your answer from before. So it's a normal process of what goes on before we come to court. And I have taken Dr. Thomas's deposition. He's the guy they've hired. They paid all this money to. Now, let me tell you about Dr. Thomas, because I want to because here's what I expect the evidence is going to show. He's very credentialed, very handsome, really funny. He says funny stuff. Probably going to come off likable. But I want you to watch what I expect the evidence to show, because I know what he did. And I may play some clips of it as evidence. See, now you're making it evidence, not argument. Watch how evasive he is. But man, you're going to have to really watch, because it's not obvious. He is the evidence is going to show he is so smooth. But watch not just how it feels, listen close to the answer. I'll give an example that I'm expecting the evidence to show. I asked so-and-so, and this was the answer. And this question goes to the heart of it. This question is one they don't have a good answer for, and it proves they're wrong. But instead of answering, he did this. And then I asked it again and he did this. And I never could get an answer. Now, we're going to go at it again in front of you. But not just that question. I want you to watch. Is he really answering my questions? But really, really listen. Somebody like that? Okay. Now when he comes in and does it, he's totally screwed because they're going to tell him. And he's either going to start answering questions, which is not his game, and he's going to fuck it all up. Or he's going to stick with his normal style and everybody's going to be going, oh, damn, that Mitnik is right. Look at this slippery bastard. So that's a strategy to deal with that kind of problem. What if there's something, someone asked me, I've got something in a video, but I'm afraid people won't really pick up on it. You know, like the guy waited forever on the video clip to answer on a key question. Should have been, it's like, was the light red? Instead of going, no, I had the green. He goes, well, you want the jury to really pick up on it. Or you ask a hard question, he's over looking over, or every time you ask a hard question, he's looking over at his lawyer and you can see it. Well, maybe the jury picks up on it. Sometimes those are pretty obvious. They're more subtle ones. Nothing's coming to mind now, but you know what I'm talking about. Opening, put a big red laser dot on it. Folks, we're going to play you this videotape of so-and-so. And I want you to listen to his answers, but I want you to watch for these three things visually, because you're assessing demeanor of witnesses, not just what they say, but how they act. I want you to watch for these three things. The first one's going to happen like 10 minutes in. The second one about 30 minutes in. And the other one, he's going to do it throughout, over and over, looking over his lawyer. And then here's what it is. And you're allowed to assess demeanor, and I want you to look specifically for it. And this is the name of the witness, so you know it's coming. It's going to be a video, and hell, you write it on a flip chart. That's his name right here. And when you hear they say, call your next witness in the defense, one of these lawyers will say, well, Judge, we're going to play the videotape deposition of Dr. So-and-so. That's the guy I'm talking about. I want you to watch for it. Well, now they're all over it. I had another question. What do we do if I only wanted 5 minutes out of the depot, but the judge is letting them cross-designate a whole bunch of shit, and now it's going to be an hour and a half read, and it's not even a video, and we're going to bore the jury, and they're going to be mad at us? I say, do you really need those 5 minutes of answers? I do. It's the only witness gives me this. I go, okay, you need it. Because my answer was going to say, don't use it. Just forget it. It's not worth it. First, try hard to get the judge to say, you can read your part. And if they truly have something that has to be read with it because that answer is out of context, that's one thing. Otherwise, they can read whatever they want in their case. Some judges will let you. A lot of them won't. They say, we're doing it one time. Okay, you try. So what's next best? I would tell them, Judge, then at that point when the judge says no, then I say, well, at the very least, Judge, I'm just going to read my part. They can read the rest of it. And they're going to say, well, wait a minute, they're his questions. I say, I don't care. We need to tell the jury it's our questions, but I don't want to be up reading it. I don't want to read it. They can't make me read it. You can rule it has to be read if they want it, but no one can say, I have to be the reader. They don't know what the hell to do. And get that ruling in advance, because then in opening statement, say, listen, there's a witness so-and-so, gave 3 answers. They're critical to our case. And I want you to hear them. Here are the 3 answers. Boom, boom, boom. Now, I don't get to just tell you that, so they say, and ask you to assume it. I got to prove it, which means he's not available witness. So we got to take it out of his sworn. Again, you explain what a deposition is. And that's all I want to play for you. It's the only part of the entire deposition matters at all to us. But they can ask to read all of it or a lot of it. And I don't want to read all that. They do. A lot of it's our questions when we were sitting in that quote deposition and we were asking a bunch of other questions about all kinds of subjects. But did that with 10 witnesses. If we all played everything in every deposition, you wouldn't be out of here in a week. We'd be here a month from now. So we all cut it down to what matters. You start big and you bring it down to what matters. And it's part of that's respect to you. ladies and gentlemen, during your time. So I only want those 3 answers. I'm gonna get them and read them. They want the rest in. If they do, I'm gonna sit down and they're gonna read it to you. They're gonna point out it's us asking the questions, but it was us not asking the questions, asking you to have to suffer, listen to it. So it may look a little weird. That's what's going on. Tell them. You know, now a judge may say you can't start in the middle, but there's nothing wrong with you read, you know, who the witness is at the very beginning and go to the part you want. Let's see. Sorry, I made some notes because these aren't normally. I'm talking on a subject, and I need to just look at some of these because these were, as we call them, gems. Here's one. Good one. Someone said, "What do you do about if our client did have the surgery?" And the defense is saying, "Well, the surgery is a cure." And look, surgery is not a cure. If it's hardware, they got a stiff neck at least from it. But the vast majority of people who have herniated disc surgery still have pain. It usually just deals with the radiation goes, but they still have the ongoing, what I call pilot-like pain that flares when they overdo for the rest of their life. And I came up with a really good little phrase to get that point across, that it's a fusion, for example, is not a cure. And this is brand new. This was like this week. So let me just tell you, I got to read it. It's so new, I don't have it in my head yet. A fusion is more like a prosthetic limb than an antibiotic. It makes the most out of a bad situation, but it is not a cure. The damage can't be undone. That's pretty good. Fusion is more like a prosthetic limb than an antibiotic. It makes the most out of a bad situation, but it is not a cure. The damage cannot be undone. And here's another little catchy phrase to make the point about you can't judge a book by its cover, which is a fabulous phrase to use in a herniated disc type case where you can't see the injury from looking on the outside. Just like you can't tell if someone's got heart disease looking on the outside. You can't tell if they got cholesterol looking on the outside. You can't tell if they got a brain injury if it's a mild traumatic brain injury from the outside. There are all kinds of horrible stuff you can't see just looking at it. Well, you got to educate the jury. You can't judge a book by a cover. Doesn't mean you're not hurt. Doesn't mean it isn't bad. And it doesn't mean you have to take his word for it. There are tests. They're just inside tests. We're going to show them to you, like MRIs. MRIs don't lie. With that in mind, your client is going to walk to the stand fine, not going to be limping about. They're going to have video surveillance and Facebook, and they're not going to be limping about because it's not the kind of injury you limp about, and you're going to point it out. But here's a good little phrase that fits all of that. A herniated disc type injury isn't the kind of injury where somebody limps about. It doesn't limp, it lasts. It doesn't limp, it lasts. And the point, folks, is, talking to the jury, a lot of limps don't last. Someone sprains an ankle, they limp. So bad they got crutches. Looks terrible on the outside too, purple, gross, swole. Doesn't last. It's intense. That's why they're limping, but it's short-lived. Hallelujah. Herniated disc doesn't have that level of intensity, but it lasts. It doesn't limp, it lasts. All right. Let's see. Here are some other new ones. Let me give you one other thing, then I'll go to those new ones. Another common issue that comes up. This isn't from my conversation. It's something I developed not long before in a trial, but I want to go ahead and share it. It's not in the book. So it is maybe not hot off the presses, but it's fresh. We run into the defense doing what I call cut and paste, or extreme cropping, like you would crop a picture down. Of the medical records. They will take and I just can't believe they do this because it makes them look so bad, but I've seen it so many times. It's not like an anomaly. It happens with surprising regularity. They will take a record and leave out the fact there's a record, a couple days later that totally changes the point they're trying to make. And sometimes in the same record, you go to the doctor and they'll say, back feels good. And they but look, back feels good. And they make a big deal and put it on a big TV screen and, oh, back feels good. And this was, three months after the crash. And you went back to the same doctor a month later and it says, that had been feeling better with the back for a while, but it's much back the way it was. Having a bad day today. And then there's another record, 6 weeks after that one that says chronic back pain. And you look at it all in context and you go, they were having a good day, you son of a bitch. And we get up and say, folks, I'm sorry to take your time, but once again, I'm on redirect or on cross or whatever it is. I'm tired of pulling this out, but here it is. Jackson, argumentative, Your Honor. Sorry, Judge. Once again, Mr. Mitnik, sorry. They put this record up. Here's the next visit. The last, I had a herniated disc case, minimally invasive surgery, didn't miss work, surveillance, Facebook pictures on rides and looking normal and, all this stuff, and not a lot of visible property damage, some gaps in treatment, a prior and a subsequent. And by the way, the subsequent crash was before the minimally invasive surgery. She waited like 2.5 years to have the surgery and had another crash closer in time than ours, much closer. I mean, you'd say, ooh, that case is a mess. No, it isn't. When we did, let's look at under circumstances. Can we keep it up here? They're at fault. Oh, and by the way, they were blaming her for the crash too. And they had a radiologist, a neurologist, an accident reconstructionist. I mean, they defended it to the wall. And I mean, their offers were a joke. For me, no, really. And I'm not talking about in Miami or Los Angeles or places where you get generally better jurors. And I don't mean to diminish lawyers in Miami or in Los Angeles. Y'all are great lawyers and get great verdicts by doing great stuff for your clients. And I wish I was there. But a lot of us are in places that, we got very conservative jurors. And I don't mean that as a slight. I mean that to say, I don't want you to think, yeah, where were you? I'll be careful because I'm talking about stuff publicly. But trust me, it was a conservative. It was not some bastion for plaintiff's cases. So in there, they kept doing this with the records, and we get up and say, okay. And there was in the narrative of the doctor's note, said nothing about, and I don't remember which, there was neck and back pain. The narrative only talked about, let's say, the neck, didn't say anything about the back. And the injury ended up really being the one got better. The real problem was the back. And there was in the narrative no mention of the back, no question. The problem is you flip to the next page of the same record, same visit. And there's one of the little pain diagrams, and our client with her own handwriting is shaded in the neck and the back. I mean, wouldn't you flip to if you want to say here and then here, and I don't know how you square it, but it is kind of concerning, folks, that the doctor who did a narration after talking to her didn't mention anything about it. I don't think they're going to get anything out of it, but you at least be straight about it. So out of that came this strategy in closing argument. And you can get it started in voir dire. Folks, one of the things our job is here. One of the things is that we keep, in fact, I think I did it in voir dire, is that y'all have to keep your eye on the ball, and we have to do our job of giving you the entirety of the evidence. Because there's actually a jury instruction on it, folks, that says that you're to base your decision based on the entirety of the evidence, meaning not just snippets. We've all heard of cut and paste. We've all heard of cropping a picture, you know, where you can make it look like something that it's not. And part of our job will be, you know, to make sure that there's no cut and paste or cropping going on. And part of your job is going to be on the lookout for it. So you're looking at the entirety of the evidence in context, not something out of context. Everybody okay? Are you up to doing that? And anybody in mind if we point that out to you? Okay. Now, closing argument. So remember we talked about that in voir dire. Now you know why. How many times would they take that record and do this? And it wasn't just one thing. There were multiple ones. How many times were things being taken out of context? Now here's the little analogy I brought it home. This, you take, I said, you know what it's like? It's if you took a picture real close and all you could see was a little bit of a lake, a cypress tree, and a duck walking. You'd go, wow, that's out in the country. But if you pulled back and really took a full picture instead of cropping it way down, what would you see? High-rise buildings. It's a lake in the middle of a city. Nothing could be further from the truth. This isn't a country shot. This is a cityscape. This is a city shot. But if you crop it way down, you cut and paste it tight enough, it just looks like you're out in the countryside. And that's what they've been doing, folks. And in voir dire, I got it going. And I said, so, you know, it's cutting and a duck walking. So throughout the trial, when they did it, I could stand in front of the jury and ask somebody a question, or I could do it in closing argument, or I could do it in opening statement. And all I had to do was go. So you're really hammering it home. Here's another one. I've been saying this publicly, but as long as we're on it, it's a really important phrase. The courtroom is not a place for hinting. It's a place for saying what you mean, backing it up. That's when they're hinting your client's faith. That's when they're hinting all kinds of things, but they won't say it because they don't believe enough in it. The courtroom is not a place for hinting. It's a place for saying what you mean and backing it up. All right. Here's another one. These are out of two recent cases with some lessons that came out of them and strategies that got designed that are very, very reusable. One was a case in a very conservative area. I'm told this is the largest verdict they've had in this place. It's a lot of money there, a lot of very conservative people, and it's just notorious for not having good verdicts. And I had a young girl, 18 years old, had a car crash, and it was bad enough. This wasn't, you know, one of these, not a lot of visible property damage. It was a good, you know, significant property damage. Not total, but moderate, let's call it. But she was hit hard enough, she broke her femur in her leg. And it had to have a rod put in it. And, but she healed up extremely well. She had what I would have never said she had a limp. But the doctor they hired to examine her concluded she had a very slight, almost imperceptible limp. And after that, reading that, I looked on, I guess she does have a little limp. But I mean, it was, if he hadn't pointed it out, I wouldn't have noticed it. So we had this little bit of limp. But it was, you know, she got hardware in her leg. And, you know, we're going to put up the films and we're going to show hardware. And she's only, you know, now I think 20 or something. And I'm in a very, very conservative area. And something dawned on me. I thought, I say hardware, and I'm looking at it through my lens where you're going, big deal. These are older, retired people. They think hardware is hallelujah. They got hip replacements. It was the greatest day of their life. They golf again. And I thought, I've got to orient these people so they understand the difference between looking through their lens of their eyes at this point in their life to the other end of the life. When that hardware is horrible, it's not hallelujah. And so we had to point that out. So listen, folks, I were in closing argument. I'm concerned it's normal for when we get older We see things different when we're younger. I got a friend of mine that's got a hip replacement. I asked him, how's it feel? He said, great, hallelujah. The pain's gone. And a bunch of the jurors were laughing. But I bet you half of them had hip replacements. And I said, but you know, I used to drop something and roll like a quarter and roll under something. I just drop down, get it, and get up. Now I'm down, and it takes me 5 minutes of looking around and figuring out how in the heck I'm gonna get back up. I said, things change. I said, look, if I limp, you've probably seen me limping in this courtroom after I've been sitting. I hobble around half the time until my joints get going. I'm 61. I said, I wish you could have seen me when I was 20. There wasn't no limping. This girl's putting her feet up at the end of the day. You know what? I put my feet up. Who doesn't? Tell you who doesn't. An 18-year-old doesn't. So you got to go put a leg up to keep the swelling down with hardware in it and a limp. A little limp, but a limp. And we got a great verdict. Multiple 7 figures. Because of an awareness of who was going to be listening, and we needed to orient them. And also that came out of that case, I call it that one bad juror. We've all had it. That person, everything I did, this guy hated me. I mean, I'd stand up, and before I could even make a point, he'd be. And when I made the point, he'd be. I mean, it was so bad. I had to force myself not to look at him because it was like demeaning. I'm like, God almighty, what am I? Must be. Nobody else was acting like that. This guy could not stand me and my point. We just made a mistake leaving him on the jury. But he was there. But I felt good about the rest of the jury. And I felt like, you know, we've got a good shot at winning, but this guy's going to be a problem. And he was not a wilting violet. He was going to be a problem. So I thought before closing, I've got to design something for this one bad juror. And here's what it is. I'll share it with you because that's a problem. That ain't the first juror. He was the most extreme I've ever had, but I've certainly had plenty of them where I could tell that ain't their cup of tea, nor is our case. I wish I had not picked that. Or they ask some written questions, and in Florida, jurors can ask written questions of witness. You can tell by the questions, you know, start out, well, if that's so, how come? And you're like, when it's your witness. One bad juror question. In closing, I said, folks, most people have heard, and the judge at the beginning of the case told you, this is the greatest civil justice system in the world. And they say it's because it's a jury system. Most places don't have it. And that's true. But there's a component of being a jury, trial by jury. It's not just the word trial by jury. It's the reality of it. And here's the reality. It's not one person's show. It's not one person making a decision. It's a group. And we've all heard the saying, there's strength in number. It couldn't be more true than in the American justice system, where we have you 6 jurors sitting here. And it's a collective decision, not a decision of one. And therefore, we have strength in number. And I ask each of you that know what's right, use that strength, stick together. And they came in, Sourpuss was here. I was worried. They polled the jury. He was going to say, is that your verdict? He was going to say, no. And he goes, yes. But that was a good gem that came out of that case that I will keep with me for the future, because I'm sure there'll be more need. One more thing. We worry about the political concerns. And the lawyer on the other side of this case, who was a nice guy, I just couldn't believe he did it. But it happened so quick. I didn't object. And then I thought he kept doing it. And I thought, now object. I thought, now it's too late. You're going to make a bigger deal out of this. And I thought, I got to come up with a strategy to counter it. And what he did in closing argument in this ultra conservative place was say, you know, one thing that's really important is that we be fair and reasonable in your verdict. Let's not get carried away. Let's not have some runaway verdict here. Let passions inflame and get in the way. Because, you know, I watch Fox News. I'm like, what the hell? And he says, and their motto is fair and balanced. I think that was it, fair and balanced. I don't watch Fox News, but I think that's right. I should have looked it up to make sure. Fair and balanced. And if it's good enough for Fox News, it's good enough for the citizens of this county on this jury on this day. And all I'm asking you to do is remember that and be fair and balanced. I'm like, why did he just ring the damn? That wasn't a dog whistle. That was an air horn. I thought, okay, it happened. I got to deal with it. So I this is something I will, again, I'm not just telling you a war story. I always hate that. War stories entertaining. I shouldn't say I hate them, but I always feel if people are taking the time to listen, they didn't just want to come and say, "Ooh, that was good." They want to take something usable away. So there's a usable piece of this part of the story too. So what I did in rebuttal was I said, you know, there is so much division in this country of ours right now. It's just sad. But this is hallowed ground we're in. This courtroom is hallowed ground. It's a place where people can come together. It's a place that's proud. It's a place that's powerful. Why? Because it's a place that we can come together, put our divisions away, and we can do all American justice. Please bring back a verdict for this young girl, the only verdict, one that recognized the magnitude of what was taken from her and over the tremendous length of time it will be, because it's going to be there forever, and bring back an all-American verdict. And I'm telling you, you see people sitting up straight, and all of a sudden this fair and balanced Fox News went out the window. This was a chance to put all that aside and let's do the right thing together as one, all American justice. Okay, out of another case, I had a couple, 2-3 lessons come out of it, real life one that I think are reproducible. One of them was, this is typical. I had a client, you know, you always have somebody on your jury with back pain. Now I got a back case and no one gave them money. Well, one thing I've said many times is you've got to say, you know, this was thrust into her life unnaturally by no fault of her own, to distinguish those. But I had to go a little further in this case and add a little to it, because we actually had a juror who I liked, but he had told us in jury selection, could he stand, because his back really bothered him. And he would stand throughout the trial. And I get up in rebuttal, and because he's been sitting there through their clothes, my clothes, their clothes, and he's standing up. And it just reminded me, ooh, you know, I gotta really deal with this, because, you know, whatever happened and the cause that no one gave him money for it was just something, you know, he had a bad back. It wasn't somebody hurt him. So I said to them, and I just looked at him when I said it. I said, you know what's important? Bad back is so disruptive to the enjoyment of life. Not that you can't do, but the experience is really different. And what's so important to keep in mind in this case is that this didn't just happen to Miss Smith. This wasn't just the normal course of things. This wasn't a health problem. This wasn't because she played sports or had a real active kind of job or slipped in the tub, you know, all on her own. This was nothing like that. This was thrust into her life unnaturally by no fault of her own, because someone was out on the road in danger in the motor public, not doing their job and driving safely. And it's changed her life forever. She's now going to live with that back problem. But for what happened on the road that day, she would not be living with that back problem. And I ask you all, and I looked at all of them and came back to, please keep that in mind as you assess her situation. So another one that happened, we've all had this happen, is going to happen again. Our client was the nicest lady, and one thing we knew she was going to be a great witness. Knew it. Guess what? She wasn't. She had had enough of this lawyer talking bad stuff to her, and it was a woman lawyer, and she got combative and argumentative with her. And I'm like, she's the sweetest night. And she was saying, yes, yes, I know what you're implying. Why would you ask me? I'm like, oh my God, just angry. And when we were questioning her, she broke down and really cried, and then hardly could go. Almost the judge said, we need to take a break. And it's herniated disc case, and it's just not your normal reaction. It wasn't a death case. It wasn't a lost a spouse case. I know having a bad back, I want to cry about it, but it feels a little out of place in the courtroom. And then it happened again, and she really broke down. And we were worried sick about it. So we dealt with it in closing argument. And you may have to do it. Just call it out. Look, jurors appreciate, don't tiptoe around stuff. Be straight with them. Say, look, I know y'all, my client on the stand got really emotional, cried a lot. I'll tell you the truth, I wish she hadn't cried all that much. And you can see the juror like, wow, he's really being candid with us. And I said, on top of that, she got combative and argumentative. And I wish she hadn't done that. I really wish she hadn't done that. I didn't expect it. I said, but you know what I know after all, if we've been here a week together and we went through all that jury selection, there are people that just couldn't sit on this case because of their biases and things. And we worked hard, and a lot of people were called, but only a few were chosen, and you were among the few. And it gives me great comfort, even though I was unhappy that happened, and I'm worried about it, to tell you the truth. But I also know the quality of folks sitting on here, and I know you understand. This case is not about judging how good a witness Miss Smith is. It's about whether she's hurt and how bad she's hurt. This isn't like the Olympics and we put up a scorecard to say, great witness. This isn't witness competition. This is about a life-altering injury. And we know she's hurt. MRIs don't lie. You've seen the MRIs. And I sure hope, because look, this is a stressful place. She's been living with this injury that has really changed her life. And when she teared up, she was talking about hurting to pick her child up. And who am I, honestly, to be going, what are you crying? I'm not walking in her shoes. She got combative. But she's also been in this lawsuit for a year and a half, and you hear the things they say, and they're suggesting she's making it up, exaggerating. That's offensive to her. And while I wish you'd have just been, yes, ma'am, yes, no, no. All of that funneled down to one moment, and you got to walk up there, and y'all are watching, and we're here in this formal setting. And that's the emotion that came out from her. And she's not perfect, but she is hurt. Got a great verdict. Great verdict. Righteous, fair, reasonable. No discount, though, from the bad performance. And I'm afraid if we hadn't just addressed it, there might have been some. See, we're out a long time. We had some folks that were clearly fighting against us. So I think we took the wind out of the sails of those that would have seized on it. And we galvanized and put the words on the tongue of the good jurors, which is what you do in closing, to win that battle over that issue. But calling it out openly, honestly, and bravely, I think made a difference. And the last thing in that was we had a defendant who got impeached a bunch and said a bunch of stuff that, didn't seem to add up. So I felt we really had truth on our side. So there'd been a lot of news about things not being truthful. There'd been stuff with people talking about Trump being a big liar. There'd been stuff talking about the liberal media being a bunch of liars and fake news. And well, I'm not saying those stories were unique to that trial, but they just happened to have been on the morning of closing argument and the evening before. Happened to have been a bunch of stuff like that. And I got thinking about it. And we're in a world, where truthfulness has become a public issue. And I thought we could maybe use that to our advantage in the trial. And so in the trial and closing argument, and I was a little hesitant because, boy, I don't like to get within sniffing distance of politics, but it just felt right in this setting. And I'll probably do it again sometime in the right setting, which is, I said, folks, sometimes it may feel like the truth doesn't matter. But you know what? Here's the beauty of being in a place like we're here. And I know you gave a lot of your time to be here. But I hope you got back in return that sense of pride in being in a place where the truth matters. In an American courtroom, whatever's happening anywhere else, in here, truth matters. Please bring back a verdict that recognizes the truth still matters. So those were some lessons out of some cases. Where are we time-wise?
About 20 after 3 o'clock. We got about 40 minutes left.
40 minutes left. I got one other thing I was going to go into. Do we have a bunch of questions? I can pause, or I will go into this new subject. That's
we have some questions. It's up to you.
Yeah. Let's do a couple questions, and then I'll flip over to this because I'm moving a new subject here.
Sure. Regarding circumstances to opposing counsel and settlement discussions, are you waiting until the trial to bring those issues to light?
Depends. Great question. Depends on whether I think the case has got a realistic chance of settling. If I think it's got a realistic chance of settling, yeah, bring it out. Bring it out. Because like I said, they're confident in their whatever one of those examples, you can bet that's a discount factor on their side. And now it's not on our side, what's that mean? We're going to be too far apart to settle. How are we going to settle? I'm either going to discount when I don't think I should, which we aren't going to do, or I've got to convince them you need to come up because your confidence in that point or those points I've just rattled. So yeah, I absolutely say. And here's how I would do it in the mediation. I don't do a lot of them anymore because all I do is try cases now. Occasionally, if someone asks me to come along, I will. But I've done tons of them. And something I've always done when I did them was I would say, look, folks, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all this stuff in my case that we think strong. I'm going to make a few of the points, but you already know them. If we're going to settle, I want to talk to you about the things that are making you confident, not the things you're worried about. You're worried about them already. If I talk about them some more, you're not going to go, oh, you're going to go, I know about that. But if I can lay out for you what I'm going to say to the jury on some points you're confident in, I want you to hear it. And I'm going to say it in ways I'm going to talk to the jury so you can assess. I don't expect you to, damn, he's right. But I do know you're experienced adjuster and experienced lawyers. And I think if you hear how it's going to play to the jury, you can go back in private and go, jury may agree with them. And then you might reassess some of those positions that you're feeling good about. And here they are. And then I just start laying into them. And I don't do it smart assy. I say, here's what I'm going to tell the jury. And I do kind of like I just did with you and lay it out. Now, if on the other hand, we got a case that's bad faith, it's a $10,000 in coverage and they blew it and wouldn't pay it. And now, we think it's bad faith and we're going to be asking for a whole lot more. And we need to settle the case. I'm not going to tell them a damn thing. Court orders to go. I should take orders to go. They didn't order me to reveal my strategies, and I won't. So it just depends on the circumstances. Got another one?
Yes, we do. Could you provide sample jury instructions of various cases?
Jury instructions?
Is that not a good question?
Yeah, and I'm just not following. In other words, the jury instructions come from the court.
Right.
I'm sorry. I suspect they mean something different, but rather than guess, I'm not sure. Maybe they can retype the question.
Jerry Webb, if you want to reword that question, we could get to that in a bit.
I would like to, I just don't remember. At the beginning, did I mention my at home but not alone brushstrokes?
You may have mentioned it briefly, but
let me re-mention it, because I'm never going to get to all the questions. But if you send me, I can't necessarily answer all the questions with email because I'm busier than heck all the time. But I am trying to answer as much stuff as I can globally. So if I get some questions that I think will really help people globally, I'm doing something called at home but not alone brushstrokes. And forgive me, I've done a bunch of webinars lately and I feel silly, but I don't remember if I covered this and I don't want to leave it out. If you will email me at kmitnik, KMITNIK, at forthepeople.com. It's FOR, kmitnik at forthepeople.com. And please include my assistant, Mary Arnold. And all you have to do is put M Arnold at forthepeople.com and say, will you add me to your listserv? And if you want to include a question, feel free to. And I may do another one of these brushstrokes. And all they are is I normally do podcasts that are called my Mitnik's Brushstrokes. And I go to New York City and we do them in a professional studio. And it's my way of getting these new ideas out to folks in between books. And I can't fly to New York right now, or I guess I could, but I won't. So I decided I've got all this info that I like, what I've been sharing, and a whole lot of other. And it was like, how am I going to get this out to everybody when I can't go up there? And I thought, you know what? Instead of Mitnik's Brushstrokes, I'm going to call it at home but not alone brushstrokes. And I'm going to type them up. And I'm going to keep them short, no more than 2 pages. Most of them are 1, maybe 1.5 pages. And it's a bunch of these things that came up through this downtime that I've had. And I'm sending them out, 1, 2 a week, and just until I run out. And I'm working on number 10, 9 have been done, and I've got plenty more to come. If you're not on, then just send that email and we will add you. And when we add you, we will catch you up on the previous ones and you'll get all of the future ones. Okay, any other questions, or I'll go on to the next subject I was going to cover.
Have you given any thought on how to handle the COVID issue in med-mal cases?
Yeah, I actually have, because I do med-mal. I don't usually talk med-mal because there's so few of us doing it these days, and I'm trying to reach the biggest audience, but I'm glad you asked. I don't know. All of this is, unblazed territory. I can tell you my opinion. Look, someone on the front line, like a pulmonologist, an infectious disease doctor, an emergency room doctor, maybe, there may be tough times with them. Your average doctor, though, they're not on the front line of fighting corona. I don't know they're going to pick up a whole lot. But here's what I do. Here's what I do feel, and I take some comfort in this. One thing I know, because I try on average when we're trying cases, at least 1 a month, and oftentimes 2, 3, sometimes 4 trials a month. And I do every kind of trial. And one thing I know is when you're trying to establish a cause challenge, the hotter the bias, the easier it is to get people to say, yeah, I can't assure the court I could be completely fair and impartial. Honestly, I just can't. I feel strongly about it. The more subtle the bias, the less nuclear charged, hot, the more they want to say, yeah, but I can put it aside, I'll be fine. Because they don't understand how a subtle bias can have a profound impact. That's why we tell the little story. Again, I don't have time to do it here, but if you do not have my book, one of the most important things in there is how to educate jurors snap quick with a little analogy as to how the subtle bias can have a powerful unintended impact. And once they understand it, then I take you through my system of how to establish cause challenges quick. And all of a sudden you're getting rid of, you got a panel of 30 jurors, you're getting rid of 15, 12 for cause that if you weren't using a system like this, you wouldn't get. And now suddenly you truly are leveling the playing field. And you're going from winning to losing, and from winning but so-so verdict to full-blown maximum justice verdicts. So please don't eat the bruises at trial, guys. It lays it out very, very, very clearly. Just that's an hour-long talk in and of itself. However, back to where I was. Sorry, I'm drifting off. I go in a cigarette company case, and you say, how many of you think they smoked for 40 years and now they're suing the cigarette company because they've got lung cancer? How many think, not on my watch, you got to be kidding me? No, I couldn't be fair. I couldn't be completely fair and impartial. I mean, hands go up like crazy. You don't have to pull teeth. I represented a lady who was drunk driving, and she's the one got hurt, the drunk driver. When you think it was hard to get people to say, no, I don't think she ought to get any money, or she's going to at least be partially at fault. I don't care whether she did anything wrong, just on principle. You think I had to pull teeth? I mean, they had pitchforks and torches out when I brought that up. Now you say to somebody, you got some feelings against, pain and suffering damages. Yeah. Some level of distrust. Would it be fair to say, I think I'll be fine? Now look, my system, if I really laid it out for you and how you set it up, I get those people for cause all the time. But it is a subtler bias, and it takes more work to get people to realize it under the honor system and then say what needs to be said to get them on the count challenge for cause. So I know, as a matter of fact, the hotter the bias, the easier it is to establish challenge for cause. Here's what I think about med-mal. I think it's going to take more jurors to seat a jury, because you're going to get more jurors for cause, because the bias for doctors, the pro bias, is going to be much stronger. And I believe in a med-mal case, one of the biggest biases you deal with is what I call doctor lovers. You did save my child's life. I've got a doctor I've gone 2 years, love him. And that subtle bias thing, but they want to say that, but that won't impact me. I love my doctor. I don't know this guy. In their heart of hearts to go. That's how the subtle bias impacts it. I believe the jury loving thing, that's my hope. I tend to be optimistic, but that's my take on it. Anybody else?
We have about a half an hour left. We could get to another question if you'd like.
I'll do whatever.
All right.
How about ask the audience? Would you like me to? The next topic I was going to go into is what I call creating the language of your case. It is not brand new, but it is significant. But I'll probably gobble up the whole 30 minutes. Or would you rather spend it question and answer? This is your show, not mine. Let me know. So, real quick, just send in question and answer, or tell me about.
We have 3 votes for language, 5 votes for language. Yeah, everyone's voting for that.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. All right, here's what I call creating the language of your case. You've got to. Words matter. We all know that. Not every word comes out of your mouth. My God, if you had to worry about every word came out of your mouth in front of a jury, you'd be tongue-tied. You'd be exhausted. You couldn't do it. But the words that you're going to frame your case around, you're going to build your case around, the structure of your case. Facts are facts, but you know, the framework you put the facts in can make a huge difference. Huge. Someone gave me this the other day and I went, wow, that really makes the point. You notice what they call the commission that oversees all the problem sinful gaming. Everyone sits around the family table and plays Monopoly or something. It's gaming. It's fun. That's a power of words. So words and phrases that we use to tell our story are essential. And the beauty is they're not popping in. You're not doing this under the spotlight of trial with stress and all these things, moving parts. And this is what you do outside of a courtroom. You have time, and there are no wrong answers, because if you get it wrong, you talk to your partners, your wife, your husband, people that got good sense. You run it around people, and if it turns out to be something you love and it's boneheaded, then you don't do it, you drop it. There are no wrong answers. You have time to get it right. And if your package is right, the language of your case is right, and the language of your case is how you build that framework. We don't use bricks and mortar and nails. It's words and phrases. If we do that right, you can take that structure, give it to the jury, and put your facts in it. And your chances of winner are going to be as good if you're the package and the sincerity in your belief, not whether you're polished and perfect or whether you're stuttering and stammering and making, nervous. So this stuff really, really, really matters. So let me run through it. And in this creating a language of case, which really just has to do with three things: picking the right, powerful, I call them powerful, perfect words. You don't want them to backfire on you. You got to make sure. You can think it's great, but there's a way they can turn around and use it against you. You never want to let them do that. So powerful, perfect words, unassailable words. The other is what I call resurrecting recognizable phrases, which is just my fancy, catchy way of saying old adages. And the third is to ask winning questions. Now, I've done this before, but I have a part I want to share with you. I'm going to go right to the one part, and if there's enough time, I'll hit some of these others. But this one is not brand new. It didn't come out. It came out not long before this virus hit. So it's fresh, just not hot off the press from this time. But I love it because I'm a word nerd. I love words. I love the power of what they can do. I love poetry because poetry is just a really good poet. When you read how they evoke emotion and put you in a time and place where you can smell it and feel it and taste it with words, it's like, wow. So that's what we did. And I realized I've really worked at it a long time, and I've lived I got so many thesauruses, it's ridiculous. And if I gotta get the word, I write it down over here and I put TH, I know that means thesaurus. It's like saying, ooh, I got a present coming tomorrow. Can't wait when the UPS comes. That thing I ordered is coming tomorrow. That's how I feel about looking at words, and I've done it for years. Not everybody's wired that way. And so I realized I'm really good at getting words, and I preach it to people. And I've had people come up to me afterwards talking when we did these things live and say, that's good, but how in the world do you come up with those words? I'm thinking, well, not that hard. And I'm going, you know what? There's a bunch of stuff he does. He's probably a great golfer, and say, I'd say, how do you do that? He golf. So I thought, what if I could come up with a formula that would help people get to the powerful, perfect words? Then I'd have done a service. That would be valuable. And all of a sudden I was watching a show, and it was called Broadchurch, really good show on Netflix. It's one of these kind of mysteries set over in England, and it was on one of those like Dover Shore coast where there's this sharp cliff down, and down below there's some gritty sand with rocks all in it, and there's not much of the sand. And my wife said to me, we were watching it, and she said, well, that's not a beach. I said, you're right, that's a coast. She said, no one would call that a beach. And I thought, wait a minute. And I literally paused it. I said, do you mind? I want to work on this. And she says, no. And then I started telling her what I was doing. She got excited, and she's my muse, and we worked it out together. And it's coming to this thing. I realized that I call them spotlight words because they illuminate and show the way for the jury. That's your framing words. I call them spotlight words. I realized the beach thing started it for me. And I thought, you know what? If I say beach, everyone knows it, not everyone. There's going to be a high probability that I'm going to evoke a certain memory. And the memory is going to be sand, cocoa butter, a towel for sunning, an umbrella, a pail for sand castles. And there's going to be an emotional outflow from that memory. And I can predict it too. It's a positive memory for most people. You say beach, you're smelling cocoa butter, and you're thinking about your kids running around, or thinking when you ran around, or thinking like right now, I'm on the Atlantic Ocean here in a place called Ponce Inlet, looking out at it through my window behind the screen here, and it's gorgeous. So it's a word. And I thought, but then what if I said, and then I started with this. I said, now, if you want to think of that rocky cliff, what you would call it is a coast. And everyone would think of that. And I actually was at a seminar, and someone raised their hand and said, when I hear coast, I think, coast of Florida, East Coast, West Coast. I said, you're right. East Coast, West Coast. Why is that word different? And if you were to say shore, you could be thinking the ocean. It could be a lake. It could be all kinds of things. And I came up with two words to describe. There are activator words that are positive and negative. I'll explain. And then there are inert words. An inert word is a word that is too vague to have any confidence in predicting what memory it's going to evoke or what emotion is going to flow out of that memory, if there is one. An activator word, as opposed to inert word, and I just made these up, the phrases, because they, to me, capture, because I'm a word guy, they captured the point I was trying to make. Activator word is a word that I can, with a good level of confidence, predict what the memory is going to be that is going to evoke. And then is the emotional flow that comes out of it that I'm going to trigger with that memory, positive or negative. So it's activator positive for what I want. I don't mean feel good. I mean, I'm looking for this feeling. I got a positive activator word with a high probability I'm going to get where I want to go. Or it's an activator word, but there's a high probability I'm going to activate something I don't want to activate. And we're going to go in the other direction. That's a negative activator. So those are the phrases. And then let me go through and explain some of this. Beach, we already did that. That is an activator word. If I'm wanting people to feel good, it's a positive activator. I realized I thought coast was an activator word. And it's going to end up cold and chilly and, a sheer cliff. That question from the audience taught me, you know what? It's an inert word, just like shore is. It's inert. It just depends. I can't say, to me personally, coast means rocky, Maine, Dover shores. But a lot of other people think East Coast, West Coast. I just don't normally, I will say it, which coast are you on, but I only in that term. But I realized there are too many people wouldn't make that automatic association, and therefore it's inert. Well, inert's okay. We use inert words all the time, but I don't want to use my staking out a claim, framing, powerful spotlight words. I don't want inert. I want activator, and I damn sure don't want a negative activator. I want a positive activator. See how cool this is? Now, because now you've got a formula. Take the word and ask yourself, Is there a reliable memory that's going to attach to that? Not certainty, but likelihood. No. Nerd. Move on. Yes. Don't stop there. Then ask, what is the likely emotion we're going to be tapping into with that memory? Is it the one I want or not? Is it a negative or a positive? If it's a negative, for God's sake, don't do it. You're activating a bad thing. If it's a positive activator, yes, you got a good word. And you still go to your thesaurus. You can go on your iPad and get something called Word Flex, like flexing your muscles, Word Flex. Great thesaurus. You plug in a word and it looks like, you see this spiraling out of all these, this word means this, and that has these derivatives, and that has, and it just fills the screen. It's cool. Not all words do it because some of them are narrow, but some of these words just, and then you can click on this word and it'll take you to some more. It just, then you press a button here and it shrinks that leg down. And I'm showing my word nerd. Great program. I got all these thesaurus. I don't use them as much as I used to because that thing's so good. But anyhow, you still got to go chasing the right word. And sometimes you go to thesaurus and you think this is a word and it takes you to another word that's similar, but it's really a little different. And you realize not only is that a better word, actually what I was chasing, I was off the mark a little. This is really more what I wanted in the first place. So anyhow, back to activator, positive or negative versus inert. And let's run through some of these. Classic one. Anyone's ever heard me talk, heard me say this, and they can say it in their sleep. My partners and people I try case with will slip and they look over and they go, wait. Accident or crash. What is accident? It's an activator word. And it's a negative, big time. Everyone has heard, oh, it's just an accident. I remember my brother and I were running through the house and breaking a lamp. My dad wanted to kill us, and my mom going, Nick, honey, it was just an accident. Accidents happen, and they don't need to be punished. They're unintentional, and a large part, just part of human frailty and unavoidable. What the hell do I want to say accident for? I mean, why would I ever want to say accident? Well, because it's accident report, because the defense lawyer says accident, the doctor says accident, the judge says accident, and everyone says accident, so you say accident. Get it out of your vocabulary. I'm telling you, I have lawyers be telling me and tell me about your case. And they say, well, let me tell you the accident. They see me look at me, the crash. Why? Now, you've heard me say it, but now I'm going to give you how this formula works. This is just exciting stuff to me. Crash. That's a positive activator. Why? Most people have been in a crash. They know that feeling. The crunching metal, time slows down. Oh my God, my car's a wreck. I hope I'm all right. I hope the other person's all right. Oh, we're going to be here for hours. Oh my God, my insurance rates. It is a very bad experience. You hear the sounds if you've ever been in a crash. If you haven't, you've seen enough. Crashes make you cringe. Positive activator versus accident is a negative activator. How about rear-ended? Rear-ended. It's inert. I don't know what the hell it's going to look. One person's going to go, I'm going to go rear-ended. You probably hurt somebody because of what I do for a living. But there are other people who are going to think it's a tap. Someone else is going to think, yeah, that's a, rear-ended. Someone's going to be claiming they hurt their neck. I don't know what's coming out of it. I cannot predict the memory nor the emotional button trigger. So I don't want to say rear-ended. We do because it's descriptive and it's been used so much. But if we're thinking, look, I'm going to be saying that over and over and over, it is one of our anchor words. I better run it through the formula. Can I really predict how people are going to react to that word? It's inert. Why use it? It'd be fine if it's just in passing. It wasn't important. It's too important a word. You're describing the injuring phenomena. So what do you use instead of rear-ended? How about rammed? Rammed from behind. That's more cringing. Rammed. That's an active. Rammed from behind. That's an activator word. Everybody's been shoved from behind at some point in their life. And as a grown-up, the idea of being shoved from behind, rammed, makes you cringe. Ooh, God, that would hurt. So rammed, rear-ended is inert. And it could go good or bad. So why play with fire? Rammed is an activator word and it's positive. It's going in the direction I want. Ram sounds like it would hurt you. It's a cringeworthy word. How about trucker? Way too inert. One person's going to think, son of a bitches, hogging the road, throwing rocks up and hitting my windshield. But the next person's going, those people deliver my milk and my Amazon packages. And by the way, I remember as a kid, and they go, I loved it. I don't know what trucker is going to vote. It's way too inert. What if I say road hog or my way or the highway bully? You probably can't say some of those in open. You got to be careful. You probably say road hog, let them object once. All right, the guy in that big semi truck, that big 80,000 pound tractor trailer. How about that? But road hog is absolutely a positive activator. Everybody's been pushed over, shoved over, stuff shot up on your car, and they just think, get out of my way or the highway, road hog. Bully. That's an activator word, and it's one you want. Here's another one. Following too closely. Way too inert. One person's going to go, oh, damn it, that's bad. Someone else is going to say, I drive home on the road every day in rush hour traffic. I'm riding close to the car in front of me all the time. What's too close? And what's too close? Who's to say? It's too inert to predict. And I don't want to play with it as one of my power words. But if I switch to tailgating, think about the difference. You've taken the ambiguity out of it. Nobody says tailgating in rush hour traffic. You may be following a little close, but everyone is. Tailgating is, this ass is on my bumper. Another great one, riding her bumper. Tailgating pisses people off. We've all had it. You've all fantasized about slamming on your brakes, making them hit you, and then suing the shit out of them for just being an ass. We don't, but here's another one. Compensation. Now, I'm not against people using compensation. I used it for years and got a lot of really good verdicts saying too much compensation is to bring it into balance. Too much is over, too little is under. You try to put the harms and loss on one side, the amount of money on the other to bring it into balance. It's David Ball classic. It's genius. And I would never say anything wrong about David Ball. I think he's one of the true inventors of damages. In fact, I'm doing a trial guides face-to-face with him coming up that I'm really excited about. I did a seminar a couple of years ago with him up in Washington, D.C. He and I did one. But anyhow, so I don't mean to diminish compensation, but this is a personal preference thing. But it's a great way to show you how you run the formula. I actually did it because I do it intuitively, but I've gone back and run the formula and gone, damn, this thing works. Why do I personally? What do I worry about compensation? It's inert. It can go good or bad. I can't predict it. One person is going to say, yeah, it is the way you make up for what was lost. You compensate for it. But another person is going to hear paycheck, payday, and that's exactly what I don't want. So what do I like? Taken. Why? it's an activator word, and it activates what I want to activate. No one likes to have their shit taken. When you're a little kid, your brother took your toy. When you're a teenager, shotgun and your buddy beats you to the passenger door, you're dragging them out. I don't like to have their stuff taken. Taxes. Why do you think people get upset with taxes? Don't like to have your money taken. Try to take someone's gun, for God's sake. People universally don't like to have their stuff taken. So when you start talking about, they took a chunk of my client's health, we're here assessing and valuing and recognizing what was taken in the way of enjoyment of life and quality of life. And a lot was taken. So I like taken. Now look, if I got some sweet little old lady who ran a red light, I may say lost. We're here to assess what was lost. It's not about how much Miss Jones is going to get. It's about how much was taken. What's a fair value for what was lost? I probably don't even, she took it. I probably tone it down. I still say taken to make the point, but I probably taken and then morph into lost. But otherwise, taken. To me. And the reason I like it, now you can see running it through the formula better than compensate.
Keith, we have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, all right. We have any more questions real quick? Because I would just go into a whole new topic now, and I don't have this. Creating the language of your case, I would be going into other things. And by the way, I got a new book coming out, probably going to be the beginning of the year. I was hoping the end of the year. Going to be called Deeper Cuts on Trial Guides. And I'm going to cover all this in more detail there. But we covered one of them, which is picking powerful, perfect words in this cool thing, activator versus inert words, that I hope is useful. You may not be as tickled with it as I am, but I hope that you find it as useful as I do. That if you struggle a little more trying to just, I get the concept, I believe in the concept, but I'm struggling a little more finding it. If you add that to your thesaurus, work the problem, I believe you're going to much quicker get to the perfect, powerful, unassailable words. And I hope along the way, you start getting excited about it and have fun with it. It's like working a crossword puzzle or doing a Sudoku or something for me. I love this stuff. And I would hope to pass that on, because we are in the business of what we say. So words do matter. So, and anybody got any questions? Otherwise, we'll sign off.
Yeah, I think we'll just wrap up there, Keith. And I just want to remind everybody that we're going to be emailing a link to the recording of this shortly after the conclusion here. And Keith, if you have anything else to conclude this with, you're free to go.
Other than to say, folks, I know your time's valuable and you've given me a lot of it, and I hope I've given you something back in return, and thank you.